Imagine sitting in your home late at night. The door is locked, the lights are dim, and the entire neighborhood is quiet. The lake outside reflects the moonlight, and everything feels calm and peaceful. Then suddenly you hear someone outside your front door. At first, it just sounds like footsteps, maybe someone walking by, but then you hear something else. The sound of metal scraping inside the lock. Click, pause, click again. Someone is trying to unlock your door. You slowly stand up from the couch and move closer to the entryway, trying to figure out what's happening. Because here's the strange part. You never gave anyone a key. Then you hear a frustrated voice outside say, "Why isn't this master key working?" For a moment you think you must be misunderstanding what you heard. But then you hear it again. Click, click, and the same voice mutters, "This is the HOA master key. It should open this door." At that point, confusion turns into disbelief, because there is no such thing as an HOA master key that allows someone to unlock a homeowner's front door. And yet someone is standing on your porch trying to do exactly that. My name is Daniel Carter, and for the past 8 years I've worked as a 911 dispatcher in our county communications center. Most people don't think much about dispatchers, but every emergency call, every request for help, every moment of panic comes through that phone line first. Some calls are real emergencies. Some are misunderstandings, and sometimes they involve people making incredibly bad decisions. I also happen to live in a quiet lakeside neighborhood with a homeowners association. Now, like most HOAs, ours claimed its purpose was simple: maintain property values, keep the community organized, and make sure everyone followed the same basic rules. At least, that was the idea. But over time, our HOA developed a different reputation: control. And the person at the center of that reputation was the HOA president, Linda Parker. Linda treated the neighborhood like it was her personal territory. She drove around the streets in her SUV almost every day looking for violations. If someone's grass was slightly too long, they would get a warning letter. If a trash bin was visible from the road, another notice would appear in the mailbox. If someone parked a boat in their driveway overnight, they would receive a fine. Most residents tried to stay out of her way. Nobody wanted to deal with the constant inspections and complaints. But recently, Linda had started pushing things even further. She had begun telling people that the HOA had inspection access to properties. Most homeowners assumed she meant looking at the outside of houses or checking shared areas. But it seemed like Linda believed it meant something else entirely. One evening, after finishing a long shift at the communications center, I drove home exhausted. It was a little after 10 at night. The neighborhood was quiet, and the lake looked almost silver under the moonlight. I locked my front door, turned off most of the lights, and sat down on the couch to relax. A few minutes later, I heard footsteps outside. At first, I ignored it. Then I heard the sound of someone trying to unlock my front door. Metal scraping. Click, pause, click again. I stood up slowly and walked toward the door. Then I heard Linda's voice outside. "Why isn't this key working?" I froze. Key? What key? She tried again. Click, click. Then she said something that made the situation even more unbelievable. This HOA master key should open it. Inside my living room, I shook my head in disbelief. There is no legal authority that allows an HOA to unlock someone's private home. And yet, here she was, standing on my porch, trying to force her way inside. Then something even stranger happened. I heard her pull out her phone, and seconds later, the phone system connected to my job lit up with an incoming call. Because I had logged into the dispatch system remotely earlier that evening to finish some paperwork, I could actually see the call coming through. When the call connected, the voice on the other end said, "Yes, I need to report a homeowner refusing access to an HOA official." It was Linda. I recognized her voice immediately, but she had no idea who she was talking to. I answered the call using my professional dispatcher voice. "Ma'am, can you tell me exactly what's happening?" She sounded annoyed. "I'm the HOA president, and I'm trying to perform a compliance inspection. But the homeowner has locked the door, and my master key isn't working." I paused for a moment, then I asked a very simple question. "Ma'am, are you currently attempting to enter the residence?" "Yes," she replied impatiently. "HOA regulations give me authority." I glanced toward my front door, where I could still hear her shifting around on the porch. At that moment, the situation stopped being strange and became something much more serious. So I asked the most important question. "Ma'am, do you currently have permission from the homeowner to enter the property?" There was a short silence on the line. "Well, no," she admitted, "but I'm the HOA president." I took a slow breath, because that answer meant the situation had crossed into trespassing territory. "Ma'am," I said calmly, "attempting to enter a private residence without permission may be considered trespassing." Her tone changed immediately. "That's ridiculous," she said. "I have a master key," I replied calmly. "HOA regulations do not grant the authority to unlock a homeowner's private residence." Another pause followed. Then she said something that made the situation even worse for her. "Well, I already tried the lock several times." Inside my living room, I shook my head again, because everything she was saying was being recorded. Finally, I spoke again. "Ma'am, I strongly recommend that you step away from the property immediately." She hesitated. Then I heard footsteps moving away from my door. A moment later, the call disconnected. The entire situation lasted less than 4 minutes. But the story didn't end there. By the next morning, the incident had spread through the neighborhood. Apparently, Linda had complained to several HOA board members that a homeowner was refusing to cooperate. But when the board discovered that the homeowner she was complaining about worked for county dispatch and had actually taken the 911 call himself, the entire situation became extremely uncomfortable for the HOA. 2 days later, the board held an emergency meeting, and by the end of that meeting, Linda Parker was no longer the HOA president. The HOA released a formal notice reminding residents that HOA representatives do not have the legal authority to enter private homes without permission, which, honestly, should have been obvious from the beginning. Because, at the end of the day, HOAs can create rules, they can send notices, they can issue fines, but they cannot unlock your front door. And sometimes, the person they try to intimidate is the exact person who ends up answering the call when they dial for help.